Buckeye Breakdown podcast continues on Friday of game week. It's our preview and prediction podcast as Ohio State gets ready for its week 3 matchup against the Golden Hurricane from Tulsa. Alongside our coach, Tommy Zagorski, I'm Brendan Gulick. Welcome to our previews and predictions, where we're going to dive into a couple of big storylines that the Buckeyes are facing this week. I know it's not necessarily a game that everybody has been dialed in all week, super excited and jazzed to play a non-Power 5 team. But instead, I think perhaps everyone is looking forward to seeing what kinds of changes that the Buckeyes made defensively that we've heard about all week. Ryan Day has promised things are going to look different, and they're reflecting on different responsibilities within the staff. Some of this falls on the players to just flat out execute better. The Buckeyes have to show some significant improvement on that side of the ball, and this is their first chance to do it. Coach, how about your thoughts in general, just where the defense was last week and what you want to see from them this week?
Brendan, like we talked, I'm hoping they're going to make adjustments. That 1-by-3 formation that we alluded to with the tight end of the boundary and the pin and pull. I'd be shocked if Tulsa doesn't run that this weekend, at least to try to get after it. I'm sure the Buckeyes have worked on it all week. But the big question is faith. Is faith and confidence for this defense. This is still a young defense. Do they have faith and confidence in the ability of whoever's calling that game? And that's different. And, sometimes you make a change like that. When you make a change, it helps the guys. And, I look back to it, in my coaching career, I was lucky to be an offensive coordinator a couple times. One of the opportunities I had to be an offensive coordinator was midseason. And I took over an offense that had been kind of, and it was not real good, but it was more so the guys in their confidence when it changed who the play caller was. And when I became the play caller, this is not to stroke myself, the guys just had a renewed faith, a renewed sense of we can get this done. And I think that possibly that's what Ryan Day's searching for right now. This is, like he said all week, this is not a overnight fix. This is something that we really have to invest in. And you and I joked off air, if I'm Ryan Day, and some people may look at this negatively, I'm taking $2.5 million out of our salary pool. I'm getting on a private plane. I'm flying to Little Rock, Arkansas, and I'm asking Barry Odom to get on that plane with me and not look back. Barry Odom's did a tremendous job at Arkansas with lesser athletes in a vaunted higher conference, and has done built this toughness, built kind of a little bit of something for that defense that you'd love to see. So, obviously Barry Odom's not going to be on the sidelines tomorrow against Tulsa, but what you do see going forward is, a job interview prospect. Other guys are these young guys, Matt Barnes, Al Washington, these guys that are on this defensive coaching staff, as well as Coach Coombs, are like, do they have the opportunity to either win back this defense or be the guy going forward that the Buckeyes need to be that perennial power that we are all accustomed to?
I'm so glad we've got you to talk about this, because better than anybody from being in locker rooms for more than a decade what the environment can be like, both when things are not going well and when things are going very well. I am of the opinion that it's extremely difficult to change coordinators mid-season when you don't have a very clear succession plan. And I know you half joke about the Barry Odom thing. I know you're high on him, but legitimately, I have a hard time seeing Kerry Combs not being the defensive coordinator the rest of the year, unless literally the world is on fire and the Buckeyes lose to Tulsa and Akron, right? Like I have a really hard time. Like I can see changing responsibilities, someone else calling plays, maybe being up in the box versus being on the sideline, but I just have a hard time seeing him not being at least in that role the rest of the season. So I guess my question for you is, have you been around too many programs that have changed coordinators like that, where, you could pinpoint some of the challenges that come with a move like that mid-year?
Yeah, you see it right now. Like, I think Coach Coombs will be the defensive coordinator going forward the rest of the season. He's got a lot of experience. He adds value at Ohio State. Just right now, it's probably not at the play calling responsibility. But that's us talking outside the facility. But whoever is going to be calling the plays this weekend, it's going to be really important. It's going to be important, like I said, to have those guys buy in. And I alluded to earlier when I was at Eastern Kentucky, my college roommate was the offensive coordinator, and he ends up getting let go midway through the season. And the head guy calls me in and goes, "Hey, I'm going to make you the play caller." And I remember that moment where you're like, holy smokes, like, we got to do this with 4 games left. We were fortunate the Colonels went 4-0 those last 4 games. But the first thing that I brought up to the guys, and this is probably not the greatest analogy, is that, hey, when you go to a bar, you're going to get a drink served up to you, and that drink you're going to get served up to you, like if you're a Moscow Mule guy, like you're going to get a Moscow Mule, like you're going to get the Moscow Mule, but it's going to be just a little different. I'm going to pour it a little differently, maybe a little bit more of a chilled copper glass for you, but whatever it may be, we've got to make sure that we still have the identity that we've invested in through this entire training camp, to this date in the season, but also understanding and have the humility to say, things are going to change a little bit. We're going to tweak the way we practice. We're going to tweak the way, maybe we do our turnover circuit. We're going to tweak the way that we do, our fundamentals of tackling. We're going to tweak the way that we practice. And, Coach Day said the energy was great, but energy can only do so much. Energy doesn't win a football game. What wins football games is being fundamentally sound and executing a game plan. And that's what you're going to hope to see out of the Buckeyes this weekend against Tulsa.
So let's maybe dive a little deeper into the offensive side of the ball. Ohio State's offense last week was largely very good. They basically stopped themselves on drives where they couldn't convert on fourth downs. And then unfortunately the interception at the end of the game that kind of sealed the fate for the Buckeyes. But, we're talking 2 games into the season now, and Ohio State has more than 1,100 yards of total offense. They continue to look like the offense that we hope and expect could compete at an extremely high level. They've got a top 10 passing offense in the country, and Tulsa's defense actually presents a pretty good challenge. They've been a good unit so far. Offensively, your biggest keys for Ohio State, what are you looking to see the Buckeyes
reestablish the run game? Last week, Coach Day had to go away from it in the second half because he didn't have faith in it. And, at the end of the day, we still rush for like 4.1 yards a carry, but you still want to be able as a play caller to feel, hey, on 1st and 10, I can run the ball. On 2nd and 8, I can run the ball. And then he didn't have that faith last week. He felt the aura of the game was kind of getting away from him. The ebb and flow of it. You go into a game as a play caller and you sit there and you go, wait a second, like we got to score every drive. Like we're not getting this. We're not going to get another stop here. We need to keep rolling with this. And I think that's important for him. And Tulsa's going to be an undersized defensive line. They're going to rotate a lot of guys in, but they play a good, fundamentally sound defense. They were awesome last year. They had the kid that was the 1st-round draft pick. But, as you're looking at it and you see it going forward, I think you're going to have a Tulsa defense that's going to give literally Ohio State everything that they can handle. Like right now, if I'm stud and I'm in the O-line room, I'm preparing for every blitz that I could possibly see going forward. And the reason I say that is because Phil Montgomery and the Tulsa staff, they know they're outmatched talent-wise. And they're playing with, they're playing really with dealer money here. No one in the country expects these guys to come into Ohio Stadium and knock Ohio State around. So they're going to throw a bunch of different stuff at them. They're going to run some exotic blitzes. They're going to try to, get Stroud to be a little less comfortable in that pocket because they just know deep down inside they don't have the guys that can cultivate that pass rush, guys that can be fit up in the run every single play. But I would not be shocked to see Ohio State get back to what they did against Minnesota, where they run the football, keep these guys moving early and often, and really, give the opportunity to see, maybe some of these younger offensive linemen to have the opportunity to have them play going forward these next 2 weeks. But, really, I think that's going to be a big part of the offense. And, once again, with our receiving core that's been so incredibly explosive, to get those guys again. And the tail of the tape's going to come back to, can we run the football and can we hit open receivers? I think those are the 2 biggest things for Ohio State going into this game. If they can do that, they're feeling really good in the locker room after the game, and they feel like they're going to go forward with it. We discussed this on Sunday. The elite programs in the country don't fall to the level of their competition. They rise to the level of their training. And, that's an old Greek philosopher's term that we've used a bunch in coaching, but that's what you're going to see going forward. So I think this is going to be a great weekend for the Buckeyes. And, I'm looking forward to seeing this offense really get after it and put something together for the faithful that they're going to attend the game tomorrow.
I'm totally in agreement with the run the football component of this. I really think that Ryan Day stressed in a big way this week. He felt like the offense was out of balance last week, and it's not a knock against a passing attack that registered almost 500 yards through the air, but he acknowledged essentially that he felt like he abandoned the run late in the game when he was kind of chasing things and needed CJ Stroud to really get after it. I mentioned this on last night's podcast, Inside the Numbers. So we had talked a few different times about the 484 passing yards being, the second most passing yards for a single player in a game in Buckeye history. What I just last night acknowledged for the first time, his number of completions and number of attempts in that game were also second in their respective categories in single game history for an Ohio State quarterback. The Buckeyes threw the ball basically 2 out of every 3 plays last week, and they ran 70 some odd plays. It may have even been more than 2 out of every 3. Got to find a way to get Travion Henderson and Mayan Williams more established this week. But to that point, you kind of get lulled into this. You're playing against a non-Power 5 team, and you want to get experience for guys who don't often see the field. This is the kind of game that you would typically see Ohio State try to play some depth. I'm wondering if we're going to see that, because last year we didn't have these non-conference games where Ohio State could get some of those guys some valuable minutes. But it feels like they've been rotating everybody in all over the place, especially on defense, through these first couple weeks. I'm very curious to see how much different, or if different at all, from the first couple games, the youth component of this game will look like.
Yeah, coming off of a loss like Ohio State just did, that's not a conversation that's being had in staff meetings right now. They're there right now, are like, we got to go win this football game. You don't feel as confident probably coming into it, just knowing that you got that L last week. Now, it doesn't matter who you're playing against. Deep down inside in the back of your mind as a coach, you do have a rotation of guys that you think about, that if you do get in that event, and that you go that way in every game, no matter who you're playing. And you have to have that to say, hey, they still get the rule to have the 4 games for these freshmen that you want to redshirt. So if there's guys that you're trying to hold over, is this an opportunity for them to get into a game and look at it? It's also the thought, do you want to waste that opportunity as well? And I think what's really important for the Buckeyes this weekend is letting, Travion, letting Mayan go run. Go run. Let's get 250-plus yard rushers here. And it doesn't matter who you're doing it against. You are doing that. And you're building that confidence in your offensive line. You're building that confidence in these young running backs. And you're giving them the ability. And still at the end of the day, it's going to give them, more reps, more opportunities, and really to see what these guys came to Columbus to do. And, I think for the coaching staff, if they decide that they want to play these younger guys because they get up, big, that's a great problem to have. And something you smile about after the game. But right now, I really think this Buckeye staff is thinking about, let's go win the football game on the offensive side of the ball. Defensively, we're still trying to find the elixir. We got to find who it is. And the one thing that's exciting is, maybe somebody down that depth chart that didn't have a great camp. We just got somebody eligible NCAA wise that can maybe get a ton of reps for us. And that gives them the ability to play for Ohio State, and maybe they're some of the missing pieces to make this Buckeye defense get ready for Big Ten play.
I'm really interested on the defensive side to see from a personnel perspective, and I guess I'm not talking about are we seeing different rotations of guys, but which guys are out there that are able to adjust in game. Because when Coach Day regularly talks about, okay, you've got a problem. Is it scheme? Is it coaching? Is it personnel? I think those are 3 obvious areas to look. But to me, the personnel component of that doesn't just mean, do we have the right guys out there? It means, are the guys that are out there that maybe made a bad play, can they fix it quickly enough before we have to change players? And in continuing to watch some tape and some analysis from this past week, I actually saw something from Joel Klatt. He put it up on Fox College Football's channel. And he put a lot more of the emphasis, or maybe the blame is a better way to say it, on the players than he did on the coaching staff. Basically saying, on all 3 of the touchdown runs that swept to the left-hand side that Oregon ran, and then certainly the one that ran up the middle, he essentially said, look, this defense is designed to work. And if you have a guy that knows that he's got to crack replace, or you've got a safety that takes the right angle to the ball, or linebackers that communicate the right way, the defense is schematically supposed to work, but the players aren't executing it well. So I just thought it was interesting to see that perspective, because I think we've probably put a lot more credence on the coaching staff not preparing guys, or guys not looking, the way they should look, and so thinking that they were taught differently. I think some of this onus probably now more rightly is being placed on the guys that are on the field. They've got the talent. It's time to go get it done.
Yeah, amen to that. But as a coach, you're either coaching it or you're allowing it. And I think that's what's really important is, like, yeah, players make plays, and you're going to give those guys the opportunity to do that. But as a coach, you're responsible for your unit. You're responsible for your group. 11 hats on defense all have a responsibility. It all works together. It's not, in conjunction where, like, the left corner or the boundary corner and the play side defensive end, that's all part of the scheme. It's all put together when you every single play. And yes, on paper, maybe some of this stuff looks like it should be done, but also if it's not working schematically, you have to give a different look. You have to adjust. You have to have in-game adjustments because, yeah, on paper and on a whiteboard, you look great. You're like, I got this thing. We got this. You're lining up. Hey, we got to get this. Well, we're not getting there. So how do we adjust make that work? And I think that's important. Like, anyone, when they drive to work, they're listening to this right now or watching us. When you drive to work, you've got a way you drive to work. Well, all of a sudden, on your way to work, like, there's an accident in front of you, and you go, holy smokes, I got to be at an 8:30 meeting. Well, are you going to sit there and just wait? Or are you going to go on your phone and figure out a different way to do it? I mean, it's adjusting. It's adapting, adjusting, and overcoming. And that's what you really want to see out of this Buckeye defense. The coaching, and I say that players, you're responsible for your players. It dates back to the Urban Meyer era, the power of the unit. That's a big part of it. And I know Ryan Day has taken a lot of parts of that. And I know at the end of the day, Ryan Day, he's going to be harder on those coaches than he is on those players because you're not recruiting those, you're not recruiting your coaches. You're paying them a livelihood to support their families to get it done the right way. And that's why there's such an important aspect of this game this weekend for them.
This is more of a tactical question than big picture. With a inexperienced defense, is it easier to play man or zone, or does that not really apply?
It goes back to playing AAU basketball. When you go play AAU basketball, you roll the ball out. What do you want to do? You're going to go play man. You're going to play different routes to go man. It's because man doesn't take as much coaching in regards to scheme, but where it does come into play is technique. And the great ones that run man, they are incredible technicians as you watch it. And Ohio State knows how to do that. They've done it for years. And really, Coach Coombs, that's his deal. He's always been a man guy. He teaches man. He gets into the nitty gritty of what the technique is for the corners, for the safeties, and what they're going to do. But at the end of the day, like, you're playing man, like, you've got somebody man. Zone, there's a lot more communication. There's a lot more adjustments as you get into it, and a lot more calls and checks that come into the defense. Because, one of the things you're going to see on, teams are going to set, they're going to adjust, they're going to realign. They're going to give you a bunch of different things. And, you and I have talked about it before, on this podcast. Like, you don't want to let the linebackers set their feet at the urinal, make them move, make them uncomfortable when they're trying to go do different things. Same thing with your secondary. And I wouldn't be shocked if see Tulsa do a lot of shifts, a lot of motions tomorrow as a way to kind of just put that on the defense and give them to paint that picture to see what Ohio State's adjustments are going to be early.
Let's talk Tulsa running backs, because I'm sure if they watch the first 2 weeks, they have seen a blueprint of what a successful rushing attack can look like from Minnesota and from Oregon. Tulsa's got a couple of fairly good running backs in the backfield. Deneric Prince has had maybe statistically the better year so far. Shamari Brooks, a pretty accomplished running back, but he's coming off of an ACL injury last year, so I don't think he's gotten quite the same volume through the first couple games. But I think you can make the argument that rushing attack for the Golden Hurricane is their offensive strength. Anything in particular stand out about that unit?
Just the way that they run really hard. They're really well coached by Jaden Everett, the running backs coach at Tulsa. And I've had an experience to work with Jaden as well for 2 years. So I know what he does day in and day out with those guys, and they love him, and they're going to run really hard for him. It's funny. Jaden's actually a Tony Alford disciple. So it's kind of a unique, backline story of those two getting together this weekend to go against each other. But having both those guys on the Doak Walker watch list is really impressive. And really, Tulsa tried to throw the football a lot in their opening game against UC Davis, which they had to lose to an FCS team at home, which is a tough one to swallow, especially as an American Conference team. But in that game, they had 3 runs, explosive runs that were called back because of penalties. A personal foul on an offensive lineman. They had a holding call on a receiver away from the football, and they had a block in the back on a receiver away from the football. So 3 explosive runs were called back in that game. That tail of the tape doesn't really give you as much of that benefit. And then last week they played an Oklahoma State team who they had on the ropes. They had them, at their place in Stillwater. They were punching, in the fourth quarter, had a fourth quarter lead, and just really couldn't hold on to it and kind of got outclassed at the end of that game. And I know Ohio State's going to preach us all week going, hey, we got to stop the run early and often, because Tulsa comes into this game. The only way they can control this game is to keep the Ohio State explosive offense off the field is by controlling the clock, is giving the ball to their two-headed monster, let those guys run the football, and give them an opportunity to maybe play for the fourth quarter, similar to what they did against Oklahoma State.
I know you don't know Jesse Mirko personally, but a 24-year-old freshman, the punter from Australia, it's maybe a part of the game that doesn't get talked about enough. And I know you've got a special teams background as well. You get a punter that can flip the field the way Jesse has, twice last week, downing a punt at the 1-yard line, and he gave all the credit to his gunners, and that's fine. But he still executed really well 2 really good punts. He also had one that was okay, but I think it's fair to focus on the 2 that were really special. In the limited time you've seen from the special teams unit so far and from Jesse, what do you like about the Buckeye special teams?
Really, you look at it this way, he's somebody that's special. He's somebody that, has a lot of, and you think about this, take a step back. 24 years old, he's moving to Columbus, Ohio to do what? To punt the football. That's what he's coming here to do. And I've had the privilege of coaching 2 of those Australian guys that have come over here, with the mindset that they want to do this. And, there's guys that get you connected with Pro Kick and stuff like that. And they place these guys. And you think about it, like, he starts off his life punting the football. The reason he's so good with it is you and I growing up with our dads, we played catch with our hands. In Australia, they kick the ball. They go, let's go kick the ball around, mate. And that's what they do. And I apologize to all Australian fans that are watching. That was very not cute to say that. But I say that with the mindset that it's more natural for him to be able to do that. And, having the humility to give credit to the other guys in the special teams unit, that's what sets Ohio State apart from everyone else that they play. It's such a talent, deep roster. Guys that are on these special teams units are elite football players. Guys that could start almost anywhere else in the country are running down covering kicks or punts. And I love to see that Ryan Day still has the ability, to have starters on those units. And I think that's when you see great cultures and great teams, is when you invest in special teams. You let your starters go play at least on one of the running units. And, going forward this weekend, don't be shocked if they have an explosive, return or something along those lines, because Tulsa's not going to try to give them a lot of opportunities. But at the end of the day, we should be able to outclass them in that third phase of the game while we're winning those hidden yards.
So you're a former All-American lineman. I know you love looking at the big guys up front, both sides of the ball. I know it's got a special place in your heart. The Buckeye offensive line has obviously done a very good job so far. Probably executed better week 1 than they did in week 2. I think they're going to have their hands full with a pretty good defensive tackle in Jackson Player this week. Is there a matchup that you're most looking forward to watching when Ohio State is on offense, specific to the line?
Yeah, looking at Jackson Player, they're going to try to get him on the center as much as possible, to have him isolated, try to get some one-on-one stuff. I think with our inside zone stuff that Ohio State runs, and maybe some of the press stuff or duo stuff that they're going to get into, and duo is just a gap scheme run with a lot of combos up front for those that are listening, and the mid-zone play that they're going to run. They're going to attack. The aiming point for the back is going to be that outside leg of the tackle, and it's going to be able to try to get that guy caught up in the zone. He's going to come in this weekend with the mindset, I got to get film together on Thayer Munford and Paris Johnson and the rest of this Ohio State offensive line. But realistically, he could get caught in the wash pretty early. I think the biggest thing is to combo him as much as possible. You're going to get double teams throughout the game. I think that's why the inside zone play is going to be so big. Back to the split flow inside zone we ran with Rucker coming across. Should be really, really good for the Buckeyes this weekend. And you, like I said in the opening, we all want to see Ohio State establish this run early, show that they can run the football, and really take a lot of stress off, off of CJ, so that he has the ability, when he does drop back to pass, he's connecting. He's making those throws that last week that we were disappointed he didn't do.
Buckeyes have played particularly well against teams that are non-Power 5 schools. In fact, they have not lost to a non-Power 5 team since 1990. So every year since 91, the Buckeyes have taken care of business. And also historically, Ohio State has been pretty darn good at not losing back-to-back games. I think the last time they did it would have been the 2013 season, Michigan State and Clemson, if I remember correctly. I don't think a lot of people are necessarily worried that the Buckeyes aren't going to win this game this week. I think it's more of a how do they look when they go out there. In a game where, I'm sure you've been in situations, or maybe you're coming off a game where you didn't play your best, and then you're playing against an opponent that, just on paper, you're more talented, you should beat. And I'm not trying to knock Tulsa's program. Tulsa and Ohio State are just not on the same level. How do you measure progress? Ryan Day was asked that this week and, gave a kind of a coach speak type answer. Well, how do you measure progress when you're going up against a team that you're going to probably out physical all game long? What are you looking for to see that you're getting better, even though the results might give you a false indication?
Cold-blooded execution of the game plan, relentless effort, running to the football on both sides of the football, finishing blocks, staying engaged. That's what you want to see. And we talked about it in the opening is, you fall to the level of your training and you don't rise to it. Like, we have to give ourselves the ability to say, hey, it doesn't matter who you're playing. You're an elite football team. You represent the Ohio State University, and you are finishing every single play. And that's where these coaches, like this film session that they're going to go into on Sunday after this game, is going to be highly, highly more looking at the little details than it was against Oregon probably last week, just because you want to make sure that your guys are executing on an entire level that is, what we were accustomed to at that point. And that's going to show the growth. Can Ohio State not turn the football over? Can Ohio State tackle guys for loss? Can Ohio State generate some sacks? Can you get some one-on-one situations in the pass game where they get back there and make it kind of wreak havoc and let the momentum of the game also be a big part of it? And like I said, at the beginning, cold-blooded execution. What's the game plan? Is everybody doing their job? Are there pluses on that grade sheet the next day? And that's what you're going to look for. You're going to look for that the next 2 weeks for Ohio State before they get into, Big Ten play. And really to look at it, not to knock who we're playing. Until Indiana, it's not like there's anybody coming down the pike right now that you're going, ooh, we're shaking our boots. It's important to make sure that the Buckeyes really grow and develop and execute at the end of the day. So execution and relentless effort are going to be hallmarks this weekend for the Buckeyes. Yeah,
definitely a softer part of the schedule with Tulsa, Akron, Rutgers, and Maryland the next 4, and then the bye before Indiana. And Indiana's got a heck of a game this week with Cincinnati because Indiana's not off to a great start. They've fallen out of the top 25. They're super talented. They've got a number of those same guys back from last year's team, but all of a sudden that game against the Hoosiers is looking a little bit less threatening than it would have if you're talking about the preseason. All right, prediction time. We'll wrap it up with this. So the line, I think on Sunday, I'm pretty sure it opened at 31, and it's backed off like almost a full touchdown now. I've seen a couple different sports books. Some are at 25, some are 24 and a half. So we've seen a significant shift in Tulsa's favor. I guess it's in Tulsa's favor if the line's tightening. I'm going 49-20. I think Ohio State's offense is going to look like what you'd expect. I think the defense will be significantly better. But I still think Tulsa's going to put a couple of touchdowns on the board. I don't know if it's going to be 2 touchdowns and 2 field goals or if it's going to be 3 touchdowns and a missed field goal, but I kind of like 49-20.
Brendan, I think we're going to score a lot of points this weekend. And I think Ohio State, they're going to make a statement this weekend, coming off this game, got to win back this fan base the right way. And people are going to laugh. I'm going to go 59-17 Buckeyes. I think the offense explodes. I think defensively, you're going to see a resounding effort by these guys that take pride in what just happened to them. It hasn't been hit in the mouth like this. Ohio State has been hit in the mouth like this in quite some time. And I know we knocked that. We said in the last 3 games, this defense has not played well. It was against the Alabama Crimson Tide, who historically was going to go down as one of the greatest teams ever assembled in the game of college football. You're going to go back and then look at like a Minnesota team that, had some points that they scored and moved the ball, had the one big explosive run and knocked some people down. But at the end of the day, this is going to be an outstanding game, across the board for Ohio State. They need to do that. And don't be shocked. Like I said, maybe a special teams touchdown tomorrow.
Looking forward to it. 59-17, huh? All right, I'm in. I think there's a lot of Buckeye fans that would love to see a final score like that. You go home and take a big, deep breath, feel a lot better about where the Buckeyes are if they put up a win like that.
Absolutely.
Tommy Zagorski, appreciate your time, my friend. We'll chat with you along the way this weekend. Look forward to your analysis of Ohio State and Tulsa.
Thanks, Brendan. Go with God, fight with heart.
All right.